So the farmers in Arkansas are quite literally begging the government for money.
Almost everything that could go wrong for Arkansas farmers did go wrong this year, and it's so bad that many are facing bankruptcy or even the closure of farms that have been passed down for generations.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, are closer.
In case you didn't know, Trump put a tariff on all fertilizer, seed, and other things that farmers need. And a lot of these farmers were part of the U.S. aid. The U.S. aid contracted these farmers to make things like soybeans and rice. But now Trump slashed almost all of the U.S. aid, and it is leaving farmers going bankrupt. Because God forbid we send food to foreign countries. And now those farmers are out of a job. Most of these farmers voted for this, and now they are asking for government handouts. When Trump said he was going to defund all of these programs, also implement all of these tariffs, did you really think that you would not be affected by all of this? Are you that gullible?
So I saw that the soybean farmers in the state of Arkansas are having a find out phase, and you know what I hate to say? I told you so. No, seriously, I'm really sick and tired of the fact that the left keeps having to say, I told you so, because we didn't want anybody to suffer, okay? We voted for everybody to survive and thrive, and you voted for the suffering of other people, and here we are. You are actually the one who is paying the price and suffering, because you can't sell your soybeans to China, because what's that? Tariffs. You can't get that new farming equipment that you needed, because of why? Tariffs. Didn't the experts tell you that? Didn't people warn you this would happen? But no, you let your internalized hate, racism, and misogyny override literal facts that were right there in front of your face that made you vote against your own best interests. And here you are, expecting a government bailout yet again. You didn't want anybody else to get government bailouts. That's socialism, and you don't like that. So what makes you so different and so deserving when you voted against government money going to anybody who has stumbled upon a hard time? Why do you get it? What makes you better than other people? Again, I don't like that we are having to say, I told you so. Okay, I wanted you to do well. I wanted you to survive and thrive. But this is what you voted for.
There's a saying in farming, you reap what you sow. And right now, in Arkansas, that saying has taken on a meaning far beyond crops and soil. Across the state, family farmers who've built their lives on hard work and self-reliance are finding themselves at the mercy of policies they helped vote into power. The same political promises that sounded like protection for real Americans are now leaving them stranded, without the aid, the programs, or the support they desperately need to survive another season. Let's unpack how we got here. Arkansas has always been proud of its farming roots. Cotton, rice, soybeans, the state feeds millions. Generations have worked this land with their hands, their hearts, and their faith in the promise that if you work hard enough, things will work out. But the truth is, farming has never been an easy game. Markets crash. Storms destroy. Global trade shifts overnight. And in moments like these, government support isn't a luxury, it's survival. Yet in recent years, many Arkansas farmers rally behind leaders who made it clear they wanted to shrink the same government programs that keep farms afloat. They voted for politicians who talked about freedom from regulation, cutting waste, and stopping government handouts. It sounded empowering. It sounded like independence. But here's the painful twist. Those cuts didn't just hit lazy city folks or big spenders in Washington. They hit the very people who believed in them.
Some new numbers have just come out that actually, in some way, make me happy, in some ways make me sad. See, in the first quarter of 2025, bankruptcies for farmers exceeded the 2024 total for the year. And in the second quarter, according to new reporting that just came out, they doubled last year's number. So the farmers that overwhelmingly voted for the administration we have are filing bankruptcies at a record pace. The last time farm bankruptcies were this high was during Trump's last term. For somebody that claims to love farmers, he sure just consistently hurts them. In fact, the last time it was this high was between 2018 and 2019. You would think maybe it was during 2020 and all that craziness, but no. This is all pre-pandemic Trump wonderful economic policies affecting farmers once again.
So let me get this straight. The farmers of Arkansas are asking the federal government for handouts, for checks, because they are struggling financially because of the tariffs and other policies of Donald Trump. They can't sell their soybeans and other goods into foreign countries like China because of the tariffs. They're now too expensive for them to be able to sell them into China because of the retaliatory tariffs. And they can't afford equipment. They can't afford the high rising prices of equipment because of other tariffs on goods and manufacturing and raw material and everything like that. And they are saying they have never seen it this bad. There was a farmer who's in his 39th season of farming, and he says he has never seen it this bad. He literally said, Donald Trump, you said you love us, but I'm not seeing the fruits of your love. What the fuck? Arkansas farmers, and they're saying, of course, it's affecting everywhere else. We saw Nebraska was having problems, facing bankruptcy. Farmers across this country are facing a huge pinch, and a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump and his policies. Well, you should have thought about that, farmers for Trump, when you went into the voting booth and places like Arkansas, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska went ruby ass red in 2024 in November. You guys made your bed, you fucked around, and now you're finding out. So yeah, the fruits of Donald Trump's love are rotten pieces of shit. If you didn't know that going in, you know it now. So as your farm continues to struggle and you're looking for a socialist handout, why don't you try pulling yourself up by your bootstraps that you preach to everybody else about and do something about it? Because frankly, the rest of the country doesn't give a damn anymore. You should have thought about that before you sold the rest of us down the river.
Now, as production costs skyrocket, diesel, fertilizer, feed, small farmers are realizing that ideology doesn't pay bills. Tractors don't run on patriotism, and bank loans don't accept campaign slogans as collateral. These farmers aren't lazy. They're not looking for a handout. What they need is investment, fair access to subsidies, protection from market manipulation, and policies that help small producers compete with megacorporations that dominate agriculture. But the doors to that kind of support are closing. And they're closing because of votes that were cast in the name of less government. The bitter irony? Those same politicians have no problem handing out tax breaks and benefits to billion-dollar agribusinesses. So, in reality, government help didn't disappear. It just stopped going to the people who need it most. So how did this happen? How did so many rural communities, including farmers in Arkansas, end up backing policies that work against them? It's not ignorance. It's narrative. For years, political messaging has focused less on economics and more on emotion. Instead of talking about crop prices or supply chains, the conversation was hijacked by issues like guns, gender, and immigration. The message was simple: vote red to protect your way of life. But when culture wars dominate elections, the actual policies fall through the cracks. And now, farmers are realizing that while they were fighting over who kneels during the anthem, their livelihoods were being auctioned off to the highest bidder. Plenty of people saw it coming. Economists, agricultural experts, even fellow farmers warned. You can't keep voting for candidates who promise budget cuts and then expect the safety net to stay in place. But for a long time, those warnings sounded like political noise. They came from voices that were dismissed as liberal, elitist, or out of touch. Now, those warnings are echoing across empty fields. And it's not about, "I told you so." It's about realizing how misinformation, pride, and political identity can blind entire communities to what's happening right in front of them.
I live in rural Arkansas. And if you don't understand why people in rural Arkansas or rural America vote Republican, it's because of fear and jealousy. Jealousy that somebody has it better than they do, that they work their asses off, and most of them do. More education, because the education here is at the bottom of the tier. Maternal mortality, low. Education, low. Quality of living, low. Infrastructure, super low. There's no industry. There's no hope for these young kids in rural Arkansas to have a job. We had a chance to vote Chris Jones, an actual rocket scientist like myself who was educated and had a plan to bring jobs and infrastructure to Arkansas. But the people I talked to in rural Arkansas will not vote for him because of his color of his skin. And they weren't nice when they described the color of his skin. So they voted for a sycophant, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is treating this like her personal money bank. There is no infrastructure here. The roads are shit. You can drive 2 hours. So my closest grocery store, besides Walmart, is 2 hours away. So if I go that 2 hours to go to that grocery store, the roads I have to take are barely have enough room for two people to pass each other. There is no cell phone coverage for over an hour and a half of that ride. And there's no hope to get those roads fixed anytime soon because there's no money. I say that, but lo and behold, what did Sarah do as of July of 2025? She has loaned and bought $55 million worth of Israeli bonds. So she's loaned Israel $55 million with a catch to give them $100 more million by the end of the year. When her people are fucking starving, they have no medical care. Hell, most teenage girls here are living at home pregnant with their moms. And they're living at home with their moms and their boyfriends. because that's how rural America lives. There's nothing for these kids to look forward to. So why would they ever vote Republican? Because that's what they're told to do. $150 million would go a long way to feed, get medical attention, and up our so that our children here in Arkansas don't die in infancy and the mothers don't die in childbirth. And that is rural America. Fuck Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She is the worst governor at, okay, she's second. Our neighbor Texas Abbott is worse, but she's a close second.
One of the strongest beliefs in rural America is that independence equals strength. You don't ask for help. You take care of your own. That mindset built this country, but it also creates a dangerous illusion because no farmer, no matter how skilled or hardworking, operates in isolation. Agriculture depends on infrastructure, trade agreements, crop insurance, and public investment. Every successful harvest is the result of collective effort, a system built to support the backbone of the nation's food supply. When voters dismantle that system in the name of freedom, what they're really doing is making it harder for themselves to compete. Because independence without resources is just struggle dressed up as pride. In the past year, many Arkansas farmers have started publicly expressing frustration, not just about market conditions, but about the government's lack of response. Some have even reached out to agencies and been told there's little funding available. Others are watching larger corporations buy up neighboring farms, consolidating land at a pace that's gutting rural communities. It's not that government money disappeared. It just got redirected toward those with better lobbyists and deeper pockets. And as that happens, the small towns that once thrived around family farms are shrinking. Stores closing, schools underfunded, the local economy drying up right alongside the soil. Here's the hard truth. What Arkansas farmers need now isn't pity, it's policy. They don't need to beg for help. They need a government that recognizes that rural America deserves investment, not neglect. That means voting for leaders who believe in strengthening the agricultural safety net, not tearing it apart. It means supporting infrastructure bills that bring broadband, irrigation systems, and green technology to rural communities. And most importantly, it means breaking away from the idea that voting conservative is the only way to preserve tradition. Because traditions don't pay when the bank comes to collect. Pragmatic policy does. This isn't about red versus blue. It's about reality versus rhetoric. Every election has consequences, and sometimes those consequences take years to reveal themselves. For Arkansas farmers, that moment of truth has arrived. They're discovering that the people who shouted government overreach were really saying, you're on your own. And being on your own sounds fine. Until the storm hits, the crops fail, and the government you weakened doesn't have the tools left to help you recover. So maybe this is a turning point. Maybe this harvest, this painful one, becomes a lesson. That politics isn't just about values or slogans. It's about survival. If rural voters want change, it starts with demanding more than empty speeches. It starts with understanding that real patriotism isn't about who you vote against. It's about voting for a future where your community can actually thrive. Because when you strip away the talking points, it's simple. Farmers don't need charity. They need champions. And it's time to start electing them. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see y'all in my next video.